So Jim Ryan did a fairly lengthy interview with GameIndustry.biz. And like they've been doing the rounds with a lot of the big media outlets, but there's a lot of confidence going on with Sony at the moment. In particular, Jim Ryan, the way he's talking about it, it's, hey, we're going to smash this generation. It's been quite interesting, the framing, especially, that it seemed to be the internal lesson that was learnt at Sony as part of PS3 was, the hubris that they sort of had with PS3. And, hey, we probably need to be a bit more grounded. And I feel like they've kind of gotten away with like on themselves again, but yeah, it's interesting. But there was a few interesting tidbits just around, the pre-orders that PS5's already had. They've sort of said it's the equivalent, I think it was like 13 weeks, correct me if I'm wrong, of what the PS4 pre-orders were. And I guess the interesting part there was they did announce how many pre-orders they had for PS4. So it was about 1 million from memory. So it means like at least 1 million PS5s have been pre-ordered, which is pretty healthy start to any console launch. And yeah, it was like a really interesting article just around how much momentum they have in this generation, that they're not really targeting, necessarily, hey, we want to sell 150 million units, because the market itself has changed. And it's more about how do you engage people? How do you get them to, essentially get on DLC or these other kind of microtransactions and make money that way. So you don't necessarily need to have that huge PS2 style install base.
On that pre-order thing, and this is just like my impression of like how I would think of everything at the moment. The whole, okay, we've had more pre-orders than what the last console launch was. Well, in my head, if I was thinking about getting a new console now, I think to myself, I'd have to pre-order to get one. Whereas in the past, I would have just said to myself, I'll just walk in and go get it. It feels like this launch, you have to do that, otherwise you're not going to get anything at all. Whereas last launch, I wouldn't have had that in my mind, and that's just me. These people obviously know what they're talking about. And maybe that was the case, because I know there were shortages as well last PS4 launch, but or last PlayStation launch. But it feels very different with everything about the pandemic, and we knowing that things aren't probably, like, a lot of these consoles aren't going to be available until sometime next year if you don't pre-order. Like, to me, that surely has had an impact on the general public pre-ordering as opposed to what they would have in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that can't be understated. Like, that was my thought as well. Like, so just looking back, not crystal ball, but rewinding the clock, when the PS4 launched, they actually had the pre-orders for it in Australia, and I'd imagine around the world as well, for the PS4 back in February of that year that it got released. So it's such a long time. Some people, they don't have as much money just to go, oh yeah, I'll just plonk $50 down on a PS4. That is very expensive as well, by the way. It was like, what was it? It was like $900 Australian to get a PS4 on launch. So like all of those things combined, and then it was such a short window with this. And then it was also, like you're saying, I think that whole FOMO thing has become very real from a marketing sense. Like, they want to make people, if they're on the fence, pull the trigger or get off the fence. You know what I mean? Like, one way or the other. And that, very Nintendo style of going, hey, this is limited, it will sell out. And Nintendo has a history of selling out. People just go, oh, geez, do I want this? Even myself with the whole Fire Emblem thing last week. Like, I was pretty close to getting that 30th anniversary set. And I'm like thinking, if that was just on the shelf always, would I buy it? No. So like it's a real good marketing tactic. Like, it's smart. Like, I hand it to them. So yeah, I think there's a bit of hubris going on here again with PlayStation. Although I still think that they're set up for success big time with the PlayStation 5. Just already they have exclusives. Like, they have exclusives that people want to play on day one of the launch. And then there's heaps of games coming out next year for PlayStation 5 as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, yeah. And it's interesting. He was talking a lot about the whole thing about people aging out of games consoles.
Oh yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
Like he actually spent quite a bit of time talking about, PlayStation. It's been it's weird. We grew up in an era where the Atari and then the NES was coming out, and then so I still to this day think of Sony as kind of a relatively new entrant to the video game space, even though it's not. It's been so long. It's been like 25 years at this point.
Yeah, 25 years. Yeah.
And what was really interesting to me about that is that I've never really thought of PlayStation having that much of a legacy, but when they this week showed that they had a lot of outlets giving gameplay hands-on of Astrobot. I can't remember what it's called, the full title.
It's like the Playroom or something like that?
Yeah, the pack-in title, which looks absolutely amazing.
It looks so cool. It's Astro's Playroom. I'm seriously keen to play both Astro games.
But what they embedded that game with all these cool nods to PlayStation's history, and I'm like, man, PlayStation actually has a really long legacy now, and I never thought of it until I saw that, and then reading this article with Jim Ryan about, hey, he's getting emails from people that have been playing since the first PlayStation. They're like, hey, I can't get a hold of one, and things. It's like, man, there's people that are it's crazy. There's people that were born, when the PlayStation first came out that are over 25 now. That's crazy to me,
I know, and even I remember, this is dating us big time, but I remember when the PlayStation launched, and I knew people and friends, older brothers and stuff like that. So they were in their mid-20s, right? And they were like, all this console stuff is all for babies, but the PlayStation was the big, this is, like an adult's console.
It's a huge turning point. Huge turning.
Yeah, it really was. And it really pains me to say, but if I had to go back and think what was the most important console, it's really hard to go past the PlayStation, the original PlayStation. Just off the top of my head. I mean, you could definitely mount an argument to say that PlayStation was the most important console. But, just going back to when it launched and, I knew people that bought it, and it was so expensive in Australia. Whoa, it was really expensive in Australia. And now that those guys who were in their mid-20s, and it was mostly guys back then, they're 50 now. It's whoa. And yeah, I'm the same as you. I feel like PlayStation's still an upstart, which is stupid.
So I wonder what all those people, I think we talked about it in a previous episode, that had those the PlayStation pirated, setups where they're all copying all the game discs and stuff. Yeah. I wonder what those guys are doing now. What are they doing? Are they still trying to sell mods to platforms, or are they kind of moved on to other ventures?
No, probably cheating in Call of Duty or something like that. That's the kind of people they are. And it was interesting in the article, Jim Ryan actually spoke about the piracy for PlayStation too.
Yeah.
And I've never actually seen them. I actually recommend people read the article. It's really interesting. He actually, and I've never seen Sony speak so directly and bluntly about this, but he was basically shitting on the PlayStation 3. If you go through the article, he's very it was just underwhelming. It was a standing start with the PS4. Yeah, it was just he kind of framed it as it was a failure, the PS3.
Just makes you...
So that also made me go, wow, okay, interesting.
It makes you wonder how they refer to it internally, if that's what he's saying publicly as well.
I agree.
They must absolutely internally think of the PS3 as the low point of the PlayStation.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's low point in numbers sold. It was the first time they ever weren't the number one console for a period of time. They ended up selling more total than the Xbox 360, but that was neck and neck. And even I think the final totals were very similar.
And it's crazy to me because out of all those generations, to me, we don't know about PlayStation 5 yet, of course. From a library standpoint and the games, to me, that was the strongest era, but obviously from a business sense, it wasn't.
Oh, PS2 is pretty strong.
The 360 PS3 era, to me, just killed it in terms of libraries.
But... Oh, I thought you meant PlayStation 3 particular.
No, that era of games, because essentially, most games are cross-platforms anyway.
Yeah, it was a great era of gaming.
Yeah.
I mean, that was back in the era where you'd have sequels on the same platform or even trilogies on the same platform.
Yeah.
You know, like these days, it's like pretty much you're lucky to get one installment from a franchise. I mean, like Uncharted, you had Uncharted 1, 2, and 3 on the PS3, and then Uncharted 4, and that was it, right? So yeah, it's changed a lot, gaming. And I love the PS3. I think I have 2 PS3s at home. Like, I think the PS3 is an awesome console. And I think actually the pricing of PS3, like the consoles themselves and the games, are going to go through the roof because you can't play them on the PS4 and PS5.
I need to figure out how much I can offer you to get one of those PS3s off you.
Well, I think my dad has one as well, so I'll ask him. Because he does. I don't think he uses it at all. Seriously.
Right.
I'll ask him.
All right. We'll take that off the podcast.
Yeah, sure. I just flagged though. I think he has the tray version. You know, the horrible one, the final revision. You don't want that one.
As long as it plays like the Tales games and stuff, the games that I didn't get access
plays
to.
all the games.
Then that's all I care. That's all I care about.
Okay. Yeah. Let's chat after the potty.
Let's make a deal.
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, like a really, really cool article. It's very hard for me to see how PlayStation 5 is not going to be the dominant platform in the next gen. Just with the momentum that they have, you can already see it. Like if you go on EB Games, you can see the pre-orders for the games, and it shows a breakdown essentially of like what's like the PlayStation 5 ranking versus Xbox Series ranking, and yeah, like it's all dominated by PS5 at the moment, which is interesting. So yeah, I think, you know, why not both? Why not buy both? I don't think there needs to be a
why
winner,
not have both?
Exactly, if you can afford it.